After we have set up our sample frame 19 by 27 inch, profile 2 inch, conventional markup 3, we now set up our very own dynamic calculation. The bottom green slider shows you your individual calculated price for the sample frame we set up before, depending on the molding price. We leave this to 100%, so the green line covers the blue line and shows the dynamic calculation. The red line shows your conventional calculation. Now we're moving on to the blue slider. The blue slider adjusts your minimum markup. You can go from 2.8 to 1.8. It also adjusts how steep the dynamic is. As a suggestion, I would leave it at around about 2. And you can see that below your average molding price, the prices are slightly higher than your conventional calculation. And if you go above, the prices are marked up slightly less than your conventional calculation. And as always, if you think it is too less, you can use the green slider to use the mixed calculation, which goes from 100% conventional to 100% dynamic, and anything in between. Coming to the red slider. As you know, you can see your minimum markup here, your maximum markup up there. And the red slider, you can adjust the tipping point. We call the tipping point the point which is your average molding price, which you pay when you buy shop service, and this would be your average molding price. You can move the tipping point from about $4 to up to over $30. So as a suggestion, I would keep it in the range between $7 and $10. So at about $9 to $10. And then we go to the red slider, where you can adjust your maximum markup. You can turn the maximum markup down to 3.4, or you can turn it up to 5.2. The maximum markup basically adjusts your price for lower end frames, because many times when you make frames from very cheap moldings, your gross contribution dollars are not enough to cover your cost. As a suggestion, I would leave your maximum markup at 4.5. So we have the sliders to 74%, 71%, 70%. And now you can make your personal mix and say, well, it's a little bit too less on the high end. I want a little bit more. So we use the mix also as 75%. And the mix now gives you your retail price for a $25 a foot molding in shop service. Your retail price will come up at about $500 compared to $600 on a conventional markup. Now we're coming to the labor cost. Labor cost is something we suggest you would need for every frame you build. you might have already a certain amount of money which you use as labor cost. We put your labor cost as a basic price for the work to build the frame and put the picture inside and things like that at $30. Now, we made this labor cost also a dynamic. At a 50% dynamic, and for your sample frame 19 by 27 with a 2-inch molding, your labor costs are matching the $30. If you now look what the dynamic does, if you use, for example, a 4-inch molding, on a 4-inch molding, your dynamic labor cost is going from $30 to $47. The dynamic for the labor cost is that it adjusts the cost to the molding size and the frame size. So if you take your 2-inch molding and you don't make a 19 by 27, let's say you make a 27 by 42 or by 41, also your labor costs adjust from $30 to $36. If you make a really big frame like a 42 by 42, with the same 2-inch molding, your dynamic labor costs go to $40. If you make this 42 to 42 with a 4-inch molding, you can see your dynamic labor cost, your basic price, goes to $57. We believe that this gives a much more realistic costing if you add the dynamic labor cost to your calculation. And if you do not like to add any fixed costing to your calculation, you simply can turn the dynamic to 0. And then you're working with a straightforward markup and no costing involved. We do suggest so to leave it at about 50%. And if you feel the basic $30 is too much, you can also adjust this one here to $10, $9. It basically goes from $100 to 0 for your conventional labor cost. And then we can close this. And this diagram, remember, shows you the retail price depending on the price of the shop service of the molding for your sample frame for a 19 by 27 with a 2-inch molding, including dynamic labor cost.